Hello everybody. How to write a research grant is always a interesting question, exciting question, exciting query for everyone. How to write a proposal for a research grant so that it has possibility to get it approved. What are the qualities of a good research grant proposal? This is very important question to those researchers, faculty members, teachers who are working in different areas of research and want to strengthen their research efforts. And for that, they need a lot of support because without any financial support, the specific objectives might not be achieved. So let's start discussing about how to write a potential research grant proposal. So the first one is what and how. What is this? As I mentioned, that we have some idea to do research. At the same time, we have some background. We have some publication, we have some articles in that area. We have demonstrated our capability in that particular area. So we are interested to reach out to the funding agencies so that we can receive the financial grant to implement our thought, our idea to the, a tangible output level so that we can achieve a tangible outcome. So of course, it goes to the development stage. And once we develop, we write a nice proposal, a wonderful document. It is submitted and then it goes for evaluation and it is granted. So what are the processes? And in fact, let us understand what are the main components. There may be various components and sometimes or almost all the time, various funding agencies during their call for projects, they always advise some guidelines. What are the expected components which are to be addressed, which are to be in all the research proposal, like title and outline, purpose, origin and motivation of the proposal, background, necessary literature review, problem statement, objectives, rationale and context, methodology, your plan of work, and there might be ethical issues involved if there is any. What is the timeline of the project, budget, the resources which are required to carry out the research, what are expected outcomes, and the list of bibliography or the references. These are the general purpose components, but there might be some other components which might be expected by the funding agencies. But generally, these are the main components. And when we can respond to these components, we can write a decent research proposal. So let's begin with the title. Title of a research project. Please remember, please note, research proposal and research paper are little different. Research proposal has many components which are unique, like budget, timeline, ethical issues are there in research paper as well. But we have to clearly articulate what are the outcomes, what are the tangible outcome, what are the timelines and budgets, and how did it originate, what's the purpose of doing research. So beginning with title, the title must be very, very clear, concise. It must not be very lengthy. The statement must be, very impressive, very clear and concise. And it must carry a meaning, a very, very specific meaning that what the researcher intends to do. So the title plays very important reflection on the very first view. During the review process, the reviewers must be excited to know about the research which has been written based on this title. Purpose and origin, whatever we want to do in our professional, endeavor or the research or academics, we need to always highlight the purpose and the origin. If you are writing research proposal, from where it is originated, how did you get this idea, and what is the purpose of doing this research, why you are proposing, has to be articulated very briefly. No description is needed. The purpose can be written in 3 statements. Origin can be written in just 7 to 8 statements. Purpose can be framed as a research question or the hypothesis. You can also write in the form of research questions. What are the research questions which are very relevant that need to be addressed, and it can be supported by a hypothesis, a concise hypothesis, and that leads directly to aims and objectives. So when you articulate purpose and origin, it must be translated into aims and objectives. What do you want to achieve? What are your main objectives in the research proposal you are writing about? The next one is literature review. I can tell you literature review is very important component. I would always say it's just like the heart of the research paper or the research project. This actually gives us the gap analysis. This helps us to write the problem statement. And what is the most important thing which we have to take care of while writing literature review is the approach. The approach is always from known to unknown. We read, we study, we critically review a number of articles, number of papers, and then we slowly, go towards unknown. Means what has not been attempted, what has not been addressed. There still remain some challenges, which are limitations in a particular research area that requires to be, addressed. So the literature review, it goes from general or generic approach to a specific topic background with which we begin, and we go towards supporting studies. We begin with background, we go on narrowing, and we get to narrower categories of research. And finally, we try to get very specific category, what is we call as hypothesis statement. And the hypothesis statement is a very concise, very extremely important, a paragraph or a set of statement that tells that this is the problem statement which we want to carry out in this piece of research. So the problem statement comes from studying current state of art work. What is the gap analysis? You can make gap analysis based on understanding the major limitations and findings in the existing and relevant research work. That gives the idea of what is the future scope of the existing contribution, and this is how you identify the problem and you aim at solving that problem with a particular approach, a plan of action or the methodology. Plagiarism, this component may come at the end, but remember, this is very important component. I can tell you, if you articulate yourself, if you write yourself, plagiarism would be 0. Similarity would never be more than 0 if you write yourself. So even if you are referring something, reference immediately after mentioning, not at the end of paragraph. Even in literature review, you are citing something, give the particular citation at that most appropriate place only. Identify source from wherever you are highlighting something and cite it. This actually acknowledges and gives the record to the regards to the contributor from where you are citing or quoting the content from. Summarize useful points should be less than 7 to 10% the similarity. I'm just saying that it must be less than 7 to 10%. But I believe that when actually you write in your own words, similarity comes to almost 0%. Ideally, 0% similarity is expected. So what is written by others, you can of course see, but copy paste and cut paste are not allowed. Rather, you can, discuss, express your understanding of what has been contributed by others and what is the gap in others' work. Even if you are writing some theoretical background or something, you can exactly, explain in your own words why it is needed and what that background which is helping in your research work. Objectives, as I mentioned, are very important specific statements and which define the practical steps to achieve the aim of the work. The study, like this is one example, the study will tell the parents and healthcare providers how much TV time is safe for children under age 5. You can say, to plan or to study the impact of TV time in the healthcare for the children below age 5. So the objective must be very, very specific. It may not be, it should not be broad statement, generic statement. The objectives must also not be more than three or four maximum, but objectives must define the goal of your research. Then comes method. Method includes, what instrumentation we are doing, what kind of devices, what implementation details we are going to have, what would be the approximate sample size, what are ethical issues involved, access to samples, how will we access to samples, how will we acquire the data set, will it require some traveling, seminar, conference, workshop, etc., data analysis, what kind of metrics will be used in order to evaluate the performance of your work. So, and it depends also what type of research methodology, whether the research method is being applied to quantitative research, qualitative research, descriptive research, analytical research, applied research, or fundamental research, exploratory, conclusive, or the research is simply survey or case study based, because case study and survey based works are also very well, research contributions. So what kind of research method is involved? Accordingly, you have to say there may be survey based, there you might not require some equipment or instrumentation. So you need not highlight about the instrumentation and the equipment. Explain the principles. What are the principles and fundamentals which are required in your method need to be highlighted. Feasibility of the study which is being planned, the work which you are proposing, whether it's feasible or not. So the analysis of feasibility has also to be presented under method. Timelines, of course, what are the tasks involved, what are subtasks under a particular task, how much time a particular task will take time. So if you are proposing your research for 2 years or 3 years, you have to clearly describe, from one quarter to second quarter or in first 3 months or 6 months, what is your plan of action, what kind of task you are going to do, going to perform. That requires to be highlighted very clearly. Then of course, budget has, the components and their cost. What are the components which we require to buy, which we require to be supported by the funding agencies, manpower, do you need research associates, research fellows, how many, and you need justification for every component. Overhead charges, if there is any overhead expenses by the institute, you have to highlight, you have to write in the beginning. Seminars, surveys, if you are planning to conduct some seminars which are actually required. So for every component, you have to give justification. There might be some miscellaneous expenses you can include. And what is important is whatever you are including, be it travel, visit, seminar, survey, data collection, equipment, manpower, whatever, you have to clearly highlight, the justification of all the components, that how much you want. Generally, the funding agency suggests the maximum limit. I mean, if you just put your budget within the limit, it would be really, appreciated. Then outcomes, what do you expect the results to be? What are your expected outcomes? You need to highlight, you need to write. Remember, your outcomes must be measurable. Don't claim which is not measurable. So write expected outcome that is measurable and qualitative also. The evaluation of outcome must be, made in terms of some quality. So outcomes must be quality outcomes. It must have some scientific merit. It must have relevance of your idea to the priorities. Yeah, an overall plan of administering the project must be, one of the important characteristic of the outcome, that how it can be administered, how it can be used in the real time, scenario, real time problem. Societal impact of the proposed research, what would be the societal impact, has also to be included in the outcome. Review and revise. Once you are done, you have written, you definitely need to review it, examine the opportunity and improve, read again and again, take advice of your peers, some experts who are known to you, and you get some reflection, think carefully what kind of changes, improvements are needed, and then revise accordingly and adjust and make the revision in such a manner that it aligns to the expected outcome or expected lines by the funding agencies, because what is their expectation, we need to meet their expectation. What is to be avoided? Not connecting the proposed research to the literature review. So literature review need not be just included and done just for the sake of literature review, but it must be relevant. It must connect with the problem identified. It must connect with the gap analysis, and it must connect with the method, how the method is going to address the gap which has come out based on the critical review of literature. Not enough details about the method. Method needs to be very much clearly explained. How do you implement? What is your plan of implementation? What would be challenges? What are your strategies to overcome those challenges? I mean, sweeping generalities are to be avoided. General purpose statement. Make sure objectives are smart. When I say smart, specific, measurable, achievable, result oriented and time bound. I repeat, specific objectives, measurable, achievable, result oriented and time bound. The rationale of proposed study is reasonable. Reasonable. The scientific design is described and adequately justified. It's not a sweeping statement or a general purpose statement. The design statement or the proposed design must be described very well, and the justification, adequate justification, has to be supported with the design statement, design diagram, or whatever you are including as an algorithm or a flow diagram. So you have to make sure that these things are taken care of. Then definitely your proposal becomes decent proposal, and most probably you will be called for presenting your thought in front of the review panel. So thank you, and good luck to all of you. Hope that when you follow all these things, very carefully, your research proposal would be very nice, and would have more possibility to get its approval by the funding agency. Another point is how to reach to the funding agency. So based on your research area, you have to keep track of the call for proposals, both at national and international level. Wherever there is a match, between the expectation from this funding agency in their call for projects and your research area on which you are working, then you can think of submitting your proposal. So I believe that whatever we have discussed, the components, the precautions, the strategies, the salient features, do's and don'ts would help all the researchers, faculty members who are aiming and planning to write a research papers, a proper research proposals, I'm sorry, to different funding agencies. Thank you so much. Good luck.